This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to the fourth ever edition of Open Mic Night. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and we have a full slate for you. We're going to do a little bit of Red Wings and Tigers, a little hybrid show, if you will, and two Ilitch-owned teams. So I thought it would be important to talk about both right now, especially since I have not talked about hockey yet, and it'll be interesting. We're going to pose a couple of different questions. We're going to address this new NHL franchise, the Seattle Kraken, and what that means for the Red Wings. We're also going to talk about the upcoming NHL Draft and who the Red Wings should take in order to continue the rebuild. And also, how much trust do we have in Steve Yzerman to steer the ship for the Red Wings at Little Caesars Arena? And then we're going to talk about the Tigers, my thoughts on this opening weekend, and a very important question for Tiger fans regarding this 60-game season. So it'll be an awesome show. I'm really looking forward to it. Had a great weekend. Just beautiful weather outside. I went to a few grad parties, played some golf, went on some bike rides. It was a lot of fun being outside, and the weather just really cooperated, and I was very happy for that. And I hope everybody else had a great weekend out there as well. Of course, Tiger baseball getting back into the swing of things, taking 2 of 3 from the Reds. That was really, really good to see. I just could not, I don't know about anybody else out there, but I just could not wait for baseball to get back. And the Tigers, one of my favorite teams out there. And in case you wanted to hear more Tiger discussion, go back to our episode number 2, where I got the chance to interview Dan Dickerson. So that was a great interview and a lot about the team there. All right, so let's jump right in. So last week, the NHL announced that the new hockey team in Seattle is going to be called the Kraken, the Seattle Kraken. Now, we knew for over a year that Seattle was going to get an NHL franchise, but we did not know the name until last week, or the logo, or anything like that. So now it was released, the Seattle Kraken. They are the 32nd NHL franchise. So now the NHL has just as many teams as the NFL. And what representatives of the team are saying about the Kraken is that this is a name that's born of the fans. And now when I think of Seattle sports, I think of fans. You know, you think of the 12th man with the Seahawks. You think of all the great moments that the Mariners had at the Kingdome and now at Safeco Field. And you think of the Seattle Sounders MLS team and how amazing those fans are. So this is definitely something I think that Seattle fans will really look forward to, having an NHL team, and just the name Kraken, it just sounds like something that the fans really wanted. So that's just a great name. And they will debut in the 2021-22 season. Now, if anybody has seen the logo, I think it looks really, really cool. It looks like one of those old English S's, you know, with kind of like the jagged S. And I guess what I had read was that it was kind of reminiscent to the old Seattle Metropolitans logo. They were a hockey team over 100 years ago in Seattle. They actually was the first American team to win the Stanley Cup. So a good tribute there. But the S, it looks like a snake, like the Kraken. You know, if you ever hear those rum commercials, release the Kraken, you know, one of those, like the Loch Ness Monster kind of thing. So I think the S looks really, really good. So exciting to see an NHL franchise in Seattle. But let me tell you this. I'll admit, I don't pay a ton of attention to the sport of hockey. I only watch the Red Wings consistently during the playoffs. I really enjoy watching playoff hockey, but I just never was into it a whole lot during the regular season. But that does not mean I'm not a fan. You know, I still cheer on the Red Wings. I've still been to a few games here and there. So obviously the NHL, I think of it as a very niche sport, just hockey in general. But I do think that the NHL has a loyal fan base, and you know, there's a bunch of issues with the TV contracts with ESPN. There's no more of that, you know, that the NHL has, and just the exposure and marketing athletes and all that. But I know the NHL has issues with that, but I think the fans that are in the NHL are very loyal to their teams, and obviously we see that with Red Wings fans wherever you go, even away games. It kind of reminds me of when the Tigers go on the road, to Florida or the West Coast or something. It seems like half the stadium is Tiger fans. I think it's the same thing with Red Wings fans. So, obviously very loyal fan base, very tradition based, even in the NHL with the original 6, and then, obviously with the expansion and now getting the 32nd team. But when I heard that Las Vegas was going to get a team, see, I never thought Las Vegas was a sports city. I just think of it as, the glitz and the glamour of the gambling and Sin City and all that kind of stuff. I don't really think of it as sports, which is why I really don't like the move that the Raiders made to Las Vegas, but that's a whole different story. But me, I'm like an even numbers guy. 31 teams in the league. I wasn't having it. But 32 now with Seattle, that makes it even. And so I like that. I like that a little bit more. Just being even there. So even though this team is way out on the West Coast, this could play a huge role for the Red Wings, because with every expansion team comes an expansion draft. And that means each team can only protect a certain amount of players so that the expansion team can have sort of like a regular draft, except instead of starting fresh with a bunch of rookies, they could start with veteran players, also can sign some free agents and all that. So the expansion draft is definitely fair for expansion teams. So for the Red Wings, that means that Steve Yzerman's going to have to make some big decisions next year with regards to who's going to be eligible for that expansion draft for the Red Wings to possibly be taken by Seattle. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how that works out in the future. And I don't want to get into a debate too much of who should be protected and who shouldn't and all that, but I think it's definitely important, because even though it's next year, so Steve Yzerman has a long time to decide, I think it could really shape the rebuild of this team. Now, we all know that the Red Wings are rebuilding, and gone are the days, at least for now, of winning the Stanley Cups every year, it seemingly, and making the playoffs 25 straight years. The team hasn't made the playoffs since the 2015-16 season. So they've been in a lot of droughts. There's just been a lot of bad hockey played in the last few years. So definitely this expansion draft next year could really help determine who stays and who's part of the rebuild and who gets to go and with other teams. So it'll be interesting to see what Steve Yzerman eventually decides next year. And speaking of this rebuilding team, I've always felt that the Red Wings throughout the years have had a mix of young and old. And that was a credit to, I think, Ken Holland. I think he knew really well how to mix the young talent in with the older veterans, and that's why they were playing great hockey there for a long time. But it just seems like the wheels fell off of Ken towards the end, and a lot of the guys from the glory days seemed to be on the team, and they were on it for a long time, like Nicholas Cronwell, who seemed to be like 40 years old. Why was he still on the team when he was very injury prone and wasn't doing a whole lot more? I mean, I can understand the loyalty, but it just was something where it was like, you need to move on. You need to think of the future. But, obviously Ken Holland now with the Edmonton Oilers doing a fantastic job there. And really, Steve Yzerman stepped in, and I think he was the perfect guy for this job last year. It's definitely a homecoming for Stevie Y. Of course, the longtime center, one of the best players in NHL history, and a really good general manager in Tampa Bay, really turning that team into a contender. So all credit to Stevie Y there. And this is just a match made in heaven, back in Detroit, working for his former team. And he's got a lot to improve. But there is some young talent on this team. Obviously, we know about Dylan Larkin, the 23-year-old center. There's also some talented forwards, Tyler Bertuzzi and Anthony Mantha. But really, what the Red Wings lack is really their defense and a lot of goalie problems this season. I mean, when you look at Jimmy Howard, 35 years old, 2-23 last season, with a 4.20 goals against average. I mean, those are not good numbers at all. So the Red Wings definitely have to improve at the goal. And then Jonathan Bernier, 31, years old. So some of these goalies are starting to get up there in age. Maybe it's time to go out and get another goalie for the Red Wings. And then besides the young talent that they have up front, it just seems to lack on the defense. And really that seems to be why they're losing some games. And obviously you need as many goal scorers as you can get. So I think it's a great idea to try to get some more wings and maybe a couple centers here and there, and just to bolster that front. But really, I think that trio of Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Mantha are really going to be the cornerstones of this rebuild. You know, they're guys that Ken Holland drafted and tried to make something of, but unfortunately it just never worked out towards the end of his time with the Red Wings. But I think Steve Yzerman was brought in to bolster the team and get the right guys in place and surround these guys with talent, get a nitty-gritty defensive line, and also a nice goaltender to add with that. So I think, and you could argue and say that the Red Wings have probably the best future plans of any team. I'd say it's close with the Tigers as well, just because of all the young talent that they have. We'll get to Tiger talk later. But you could make a strong case that the Red Wings have a very good future lined up, and they have the pedigree. I mean, they have all the championships, all the Stanley Cups. They have really a lot of legendary players. And so you think of probably the most successful team in the city of Detroit. There's a lot to hope for the Red Wings with Steve Yzerman at the helm and some of the young talent that they're hoping to build around. So it'll be interesting to see what Steve Yzerman does, and I'm excited because I really miss those dominant Red Wings teams and winning Stanley Cups. In fact, I mean, they were the last Detroit team to win a championship. You know, it's been 12 years since, but you know, it'd be nice to see Hockey Town come alive at Little Caesars Arena and showing off the beautiful arena to the entire nation. So besides going out and getting different pieces via free agency to fit this Red Wings team, another big thing on the agenda for Steve Yzerman is the upcoming NHL Draft. Now, of course, just a few weeks ago, the Red Wings, it was announced that they would get the 4th overall pick. Even though they were the worst team in the league, you'd think they'd have the best odds to get the 1st overall pick, but it's just how the NHL draft lottery works. There's even some playoff teams that have a slim chance of getting the number 1 overall pick, and that's a story for another day. But regardless, the Red Wings drafting 4th overall, and really there is a lot of different directions that Steve Yzerman and company can go in this draft. As I mentioned, a lot of talent up front, but it would be very nice if they could get a forward or somebody like that could just add to that scoring. Also, defense. And you know, I talked about it earlier. Really, it seems like the Red Wings are really lacking that formidable punch on the defense. And Steve Yzerman said it in a press conference the other day, talking about they're not really targeting a specific position. They're sort of looking at all the different pieces that they have and seeing where the best really available prospect could go and fit, because there are some talented skaters in this upcoming NHL draft, and the Red Wings have a very high pick. And also Red Wings fans who may be upset that they weren't getting the number 1 overall pick. I mean, there's still a lot of talented players, and Steve Yzerman even mentioned it himself. He himself was picked 4th overall by the Red Wings, and I'd say he turned out pretty good. So have no fear, Red Wings fans. There's definitely some talent out there that they could take at number 4. Last year in the 1st round, Steve Yzerman, with his first pick ever as Red Wings general manager, he picked Moritz Seider, a defenseman from Germany, and from what he's been saying, he's been progressing very well in Grand Rapids and will be up with the Red Wings hopefully next season. So if Steve Yzerman could add another defenseman to the mix, I mean, that would be really, really good. But I mean, if he goes forward or another offensive weapon, I wouldn't be against that too. I wouldn't be against seeing more goals scored, but definitely a lot of concerns in areas that the Red Wings really need to improve on in this off season. So best of luck to Stevie Y in his quest to bring the Red Wings back as kings of the NHL. So it'll be interesting to see how that journey pans out for him and the rest of that team over at Little Caesars Arena. All right, so baseball is finally back for the Tigers, taking 2 of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds this weekend. And man, I was so happy for the Tigers, because last season and really in this rebuild, there's not really much good news with the Tigers, but the fact that they won their opening series of the season just says a lot. However, it did get off to a rocky start. Friday, the first game, lost that one 7-1. Matthew Boyd did not look good pitching. I believe he hit the first 2 batters of the game, and it just was not good. And I think a lot of Tiger fans were freaking out. They were like, okay, well, we had a little optimism this season, but that's just all out the window. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's the first game of the season. They're just settling in. Give the Tigers a chance. And people were telling me, I had people texting me saying, what's up with your Tigers? Come on, that was embarrassing. And I said, hey, 59 more games to go. And sure enough, they win their next 2 and take the series. So overall, besides that opening game, I was very impressed with this Tiger team. And a couple of the new acquisitions made some noise as well. CJ Cron hitting 2 home runs over the weekend, a big signing for the Tigers. They signed him mainly for his power, and he definitely showed it off this weekend. Austin Romine also adding into the mix with a home run, now the starting catcher. So that was impressive to see. Miguel Cabrera even getting in on the home runs. Now I like Miguel Cabrera hitting that because there was a lot of question marks this season as to what would happen. What will we see of Miggy? Would it be another injury-plagued season? Would he have a fresh start because of all the weight that he lost and all that? And it was nice to see Miggy swinging the bat well, taking that upstairs pitch out of the park. But I think the most impressive thing for me this weekend was that the Tigers, they weren't leading in any of these games when they got to the 9th inning. They scored runs exactly when they needed to score. Saturday, they're tied 4-4. They score 2 runs in the 9th and win the game as the bullpen holds down the fort at the end. When was the last time we heard that? Bullpen not screwing things up this time. Jacoby Jones hitting that home run on Saturday, and man, that's good to see Jacoby Jones swinging the bat well because that's something that he's lacked in recent years is the power. He got better at it last season, changed up his swing. I think he went to a different swing coach and really added some power. So some of that will be expected from him in center field this season. So great way to start off the winning streak for the Tigers on Saturday. And then Sunday, down 2-1 in the 9th inning, scoring 2 runs, then to hold on and win 3-2. It was that CJ Cron 2-run shot in the 9th inning going opposite field. So obviously definitely good to see the acquisition making some plays. I also thought Spencer Turnbull pitched very well. I saw 8 strikeouts on the day, and his pitching looked very good. And he had a great start to last season as well. Kind of fell off towards the end, but started off very well. And I'm looking for more of that this season. And the Tigers are really going to need some pitching, especially since Jordan Zimmerman, it looks like he's out for the rest of the season. And Michael Fulmer is getting back into the mix, but he's just going to be an opener. So he'll just be starting the first couple innings just to get him back into game shape, I guess, since he missed all of last season with that Tommy John surgery. And then you have the prospects, Casey Mize, Matt Manning, who hopefully will be brought up very soon to bolster the pitching staff. The whole service time thing is really what's preventing them from being on the opening day roster. So it'll be interesting to see when that happens. But overall, very impressed with this weekend. And one thing that really stood out to me was just the grittiness of this team. It just seems like they're not giving up. There's some teams that could be bad that just say, you know what? We're not trying, but I definitely saw the try and the fight with the Tigers. I mean, scoring those very key runs in the 9th inning and those 2 wins, really said it all. And the defense played well, I thought, in some of those games. I mean, Jacoby Jones basically robbing a home run in the 5th inning of that game on Sunday. The bases were loaded, and it was great to see defensive plays like that. And Jacoby, very electric in the outfield. He's used to making those plays, and just a great player to watch, and glad he got that home run, also clutch home run in the ninth on Saturday. So at the time of this recording, the Tigers have not played their home opener against the Royals, but definitely looking forward to that down at Comerica Park. Obviously, no fans allowed, but it'll be nice just to get some baseball back in the city of Detroit. And, this morning, woke up and I saw the standings and I thought, wow, Tigers are tied for first place in the Central Division with that 2-1 record. It made me feel really, really good. And obviously, I feel really good about this, and I feel good that the Tigers won the series, and because there wasn't a whole lot of series that they won last year. But if this was not a 60-game season, I don't know if I would feel as good, because if this was 162 games like a regular season would be, I would kind of feel like, okay, great start. We gotta keep it rolling. We gotta keep it rolling, and I feel the same way for this season, but it's all about a team that gets hot, and this is a great sign of the Tigers getting hot, and it's something that they just have to keep up with. And I just feel even more excited that they took 3 games. All right, 3 down, 57 to go, because it's instead of it being, 160 to go, it's just only 57. And really any team can win the World Series this year, it seems like. 16 teams, it was announced last week that the MLB will be expanding to for the playoffs this season. So really my question that I posed at the beginning that I wanted to talk about was, can this team make the playoffs? Now, some people might think that's just absolutely outrageous. Oh, Noah, how this team is terrible. They can't win games. Well, they did. They won some on Saturday and Sunday, and the bullpen was decent, and some of the starting pitching was decent. So will that be enough to spark the Tigers for the rest of the season? And you think about it, since there's going to be 8 teams in each league making it, the American League and the National League, you think a team that's around 500, maybe a little bit below 500, will probably end up making the playoffs. And at the 60-game mark last season, the Tigers won 26 games. And you know how bad the Tigers were record-wise last season. They won 26 games at the 60-game mark. So and that's only 4 games off from 500, because 30 and 30 would be 500 for a 60-game season. And you think, well, what the Tigers did this offseason, nothing hurt. Signing Austin Romine and Jonathan Scope and CJ Cron, 3 starters, doesn't hurt. Having Miguel Cabrera in shape and slim and hitting another home run doesn't hurt. Getting Casey Mize and Matt Manning hopefully up soon doesn't hurt. So you think a combination of all the batters that they sign, the position players that they sign, and some of the pitching that will be called up later in, I forgot, Michael Fulmer will be healthy now. I know he's just being used as an opener for the time being, but he's still a valuable asset. You think, why not? Why not the Tigers this season? You think that would get you 4 more wins? A combination of all that to go 500 and probably make the playoffs at around 500? My answer is yes. And I know 57 more games to go. This could have just been a flash in the pan, if you will, but I'm willing to give this Tiger team a chance this season. And this weekend proved to me that they can win some games, but they're going to have to really prove it against the Royals and then, obviously some of the upcoming series. But hey, if we're in similar situations by the end of this week with winning series and getting the runs necessary in order to win games, I mean, why not? Why not the Tigers in the playoffs? And I wouldn't be talking like this in any other year. It's just because it's just such an abbreviated season that really it's up for grabs. And why not the Tigers? I don't want them to lose out and get a better draft pick. I think those days I want those days to be over for the Tigers. I don't want to keep getting high draft picks to get prospects that you never know if they're going to pan out or not. I want the Tigers to start winning and then get these prospects up so that there could be a chance for a World Series in the next coming years. And obviously, there's probably some players that maybe the Tigers could trade. I believe there is a trade deadline this year. Maybe a guy like Matthew Boyd, they could trade and get a couple prospects here and there. But folks, I'm kind of over with prospects. Okay, and especially the trades that Al Avila has made. It's just like there hasn't been a whole lot in return. Think about the Justin Verlander trade. Where's Jake Rogers at? Where's Daz Cameron? They're not progressing as much as what the Tigers hope for. For Franklin Perez, he's been hurt. At least they got Jamer Candelario in the Chicago Cubs trade for Alex Wilson and Alex Avila. Where's Travis Demeritte? I thought he was our starting right fielder last season. We got him in the Shane Green trade. Didn't even make the 30-man roster. So a lot of these prospects just aren't panning out for the Tigers, and I just don't want more of that. That's why I think Tigers should just ride with the prospects that they have right now. And then when they get Jordan Zimmerman's contract off this season, which I think it's almost guaranteed he's not coming back on this team. I mean, at the time, it seemed like it was a good contract, but now it was definitely considered a bust. That's for sure. But once they get Jordan Zimmerman's contract off, the only big contract they'll have left is Miggy. And I really hope that they try to sign some of those big bats like they did when Dave Dombrowski was here, when they signed Prince Fielder, when they signed Maglio Ordonez even before that. They signed Pudge Rodriguez. These were guys that took them to the World Series those years. So I think a good mix of homegrown players that they drafted and the prospects that they have, along with guys that they could pay later some big bucks since Zimmerman's contract will be off pretty soon. I think that could be a combination for success for the Tigers, and I think this rebuild is over. I think this is the year where you start to build your team for the 2020s decade, and hopefully, I'm really hoping by the middle of the decade, at least then, when the Tigers start really competing. Now, making the playoffs this season would be a great stepping stone, and I want the Tigers to win, but I wouldn't be disappointed. If they didn't make it far in the playoffs or anything like that. I just want them to just, it's baby steps. And I think making the playoffs in the 60-game season would be excellent for the Tigers and getting their hopes up for the coming years, saying, hey, you know what? We're building something special here in Detroit. Maybe even recruiting some free agents along the way in the coming years. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Tigers this season, and baseball's finally back. I'm glued to my television screen, but we just need a winner here in Detroit. And the Tigers, along with the Red Wings, like I mentioned earlier, might be the two teams that have the best chance at a really solid future. So it'd be nice to start things off by taking another series against the Kansas City Royals. And if they take that series, they hopefully would be in first place in the Central Division. So we shall see, and it'll be another exciting year of Tiger baseball, hopefully in the books at Comerica Park. So thanks again for joining us here. It was great talking Red Wings and Tigers. Don't forget to check out the previous episode. Sorry about no guest this week, but we had guests on before. Matt Derry talked Lions, Dan Dickerson talking Tigers, episode 2, and Rod Beard last week talking some Pistons with me, the beat writer for the Detroit News. So it's a lot of fun. Thanks again to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. John Macaroon, Adam Strozinski, they host a couple podcasts. You can check them out. Doc and Jock, the wrestling podcast, also the fan reports out there, the Michigan football podcast, the Tiger Talk now. John is doing that with Vito and much, much more on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. So thanks to them, and it's been great. I love interning for them and editing all the podcasts and doing my own. So it's a lot of fun doing it and with you guys, and it's really awesome that I was able to get this opportunity. So thanks again, and make sure to tune in next week. Should be another fun episode, hopefully to get some college football in the mix, and I'll definitely be doing another Lions episode in the coming weeks for a little training camp preview. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week only on Open Mic Night.